is.
No, the back page, huh?
Oh,
That's true.
got it.
Actually, I know someone.
We all read it.
I know someone with that name.
Okay.
Ah,
And do I have a second?
Second. Sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Minutes approved with one modification. Next, we have 3 bills that we will be signing as posted.
wait, wait, wait.
Actually, 2 bills.
Oh, no, wait.
And we need to sign the minutes. And it brings us to our first hearing, which is a continued hearing from the July 25th meeting, 34 St. James Road, Glenn Lucchese and Joseph Lucchese. I need to recuse myself from this one.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Richard Ricker. I'm the attorney for the petition in this particular matter, and we would respectfully request permission to withdraw the request at this time.
No, I have no objection.
No, anyone object?
Either.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Is Ron recusing himself for this one here?
Hey, Fred.
Are you
Peter, you're up.
Actually, Lisa, you're going for this one, too.
Okay, I am gone for this one.
Okay, sure.
Our first 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Stephen and Catherine Boulay, 7 Redland Street, Shrewsbury, Mass. I'm sorry, 6 Redland Street, Shrewsbury, Mass, for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7, Table 2, in the Residence B1 District, to allow the construction of a detached garage within 12 feet 6 inches of the front property line upon property located at 8 Redland Street. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 39, plots 231 and 231-1. If you could please state your names for the record. Okay.
Purpose for this is, as you just mentioned, is to get a zoning adjustment so that we can build a 2-car garage on a piece of property that we still actually have a 2-car garage on it many years ago. In the plot plans, you may have a copy of, outlines where the existing pad is for the, where these locations are for this district. I've also taken some photos of the area, so if you'd like to
Sure, bring 'em up.
understand, we know how many copies to bring, so.
Thank you. You can take those. Pass these down. Pass one down. No, that's all I have, sir.
Thanks. Yeah.
If you look to the second page that actually has only 2 photos on it, you can see that there's a back elevation. There's actually some tarps on the left-hand side, and you can see how far the land continues to slope backwards. So it would be a hardship for us to consider, have to go back 30 feet from that spot. That is actually the back of where the existing concrete pad is. That will be where the location of the proposed construction is.
The picture with the westerly view down Redland Street, that's someone else's house?
That is,
No,
that is
that's
the
our
house.
house.
No, that,
Isn't it? Oh.
at the end of the road is
Okay.
the house on Worthington Ave.
Okay.
So you're saying there was a garage there already?
Yes.
There was once one there, yes.
Why was it torn down?
Actually, we purchased the land, we purchased 6 Redland Street in 1985, That land is an unbuildable lot that we purchased later on. I can't recall exactly which year.
Purchased about 7 years ago, but that garage burned down years ago.
Before we bought the
Before we
property.
bought the property, so.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Anyone up here? No? Okay. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, there being no further questions, we'll take it under advisement, and you will be notified of our decision.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you sign the bills?
I was thinking about it. Let me just check and make sure. Did I? No.
No.
Yeah, I signed that.
Bills, and I'll get to all this something. Can you sign these 2 bills, please? Do you want to, let's vote on this 8 Redland Street. We have about 10 minutes before we can go to the 6:45 hearings. Any discussion? Anything?
No, there's
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
hardships,
Yeah.
and obviously, this is a very close neighborhood. If there was somebody that had an argument,
They would have been
they
here.
would have all been here.
Yeah. You think, huh?
Yeah,
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You good? Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, will we
Oh.
have,
Mr. Chairman, why don't we do the form that Kristen wrote?
That's what I was just going to suggest, and I bet that Kristen was just about to suggest. Did everyone review it?
I think it's good. It's only one small change, I think.
Not the clerk's name.
Around. Gives us a little more information. What do you think, Kristen?
right, so I added to the form, right now, we don't have a space for the applicant to provide what zoning district they're in. So when they submit their application, Michelle or I or Patty actually has to go find and then put that into the legal notice. That helps us out. Also, under the pertinent information section, we added, if applying for a variance, state reasons for hardship, slope, soil topography, or other. Generally, we're searching for what that hardship is. This provides a place for the applicant to provide that. And if applying for a special permit, state how the project meets special permit criteria. Within our zoning bylaw, we have special permit criteria that the applicant or project needs to meet. The last thing that we've added is the signature of the inspector of buildings. Generally, the applicant submits their application to the town clerk. The town clerk transfers that to the building inspector, to Michelle and myself, and we review the application. More times than not, there's missing information from that application, which forces us to spend time chasing the applicant, trying to obtain additional information. With this signature, before it goes to the town clerk, it ensures that the applicant has all of their necessary information or knows what information needs to be submitted before they go ahead and submit to the clerk at the filing deadline.
I had a question. Have we always had, or is it just on the existing form that we've had the signature of the property owner?
We've always had it on the existing form, and we also, it carries through to the,
Okay, and is that purposes for the consent of the owner or
That's
an
correct.
acknowledgement? I was wondering if it might be appropriate for us to put, an option for that to be plural. Signature of property owner, parentheses, S. In the event that there's, I mean, if we're looking for the signature of the owner and there are multiple owners, one signature isn't really
Well,
valid.
it might be. I don't know that.
It might be.
right,
I don't
one
know.
may stand, it's a
In one
more of a
in
legal
one bind?
question.
Yeah, I know, that's why I was asking, for
Right.
one bind.
I'd have to look
I mean,
into
I don't
that.
know, I don't want to suggest that if it's going to be cumbersome.
Well, I don't want to suggest it if it's not, if we don't need it.
Generally, with the planning board submittals, we have them submit a certificate of ownership that the person who's authorized to sign for that property or company signs. We can also require them to submit a certificate of ownership with their application form, but it's a little bit more onerous. You have to
I
have it
would just check with
notarized.
town
So
council.
I'll check with Phil, and we'll
Yeah.
see what we need
Yeah.
to do there.
That was the only question I had.
Anyone else?
Looks pretty good.
Looks good. And not that the S would be significant. I guess what I'm leading to is that if we should have all owner sign, then it should require all owner signature.
Right. We'll check with town council on that. Also, just within the coming months, I will probably be updating, and we'll have a legal ad for this, to update the zoning Board of Appeals rules and regulations to come into more of compliance with the planning board rules and regulations that we just established, to make our job even easier to just follow those regulations. But we'll have a public hearing for that, so I'll alert the board when that comes up.
Okay. Do we need to vote on this? Or
It's just under new business, if you want to have a vote that everyone's in.
anyone, okay. Anyone make a motion?
I would make a motion that we accept this as proposed with the proviso that we get the consent of town council prior to it being
Final
finalized.
form.
Sure.
Yep.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. No, not related. It's a colleague of Alexis. It's a colleague of Alexis.
Really?
Yeah. Is there any old business?
We do not have any
That up.
old business,
You don't-
and we don't have any correspondence.
Correspondence, I didn't think so, okay.
If we do have a few more minutes, I'll just direct the board to their packets. We did receive 2 pieces of correspondence for 37 Rear Clue Street that you might just want to review in the next minute that we have to wait.
And the pension fund goes up pretty good.
Yeah, they pumped it out ahead of the storm. Yeah.
Thank God they did.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of rain. I watch it every morning as I go.
Yeah. It's all greening up there.
Yeah.
I don't get out there too
It's
much.
just water with a little silt in it, isn't it? Right now?
And the retention pond, the ponds inside the landfill, you want to make sure those are pumped out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's going to be ash.
Oh, all right.
So, everything was good, though.
Is that the engineering?
Yeah, one's engineering and one is from town engineer.
I'm doing good. How about
And actually,
yourself?
within this,
Tomorrow.
it's actually within
That's
this
what I'm doing.
packet that's tonight's agenda
You got your
Okay.
that has
trailer?
the 2 pieces of information that,
Gonna move over.
Oh, there's something else here, too. Okay.
All right, what's this one?
and for the next hearing, Lisa will sit and Fred will not be sitting, because this is a hearing that we had from last meeting.
Continued hearing.
Push
Is a
in.
continued one here?
Push in.
Yep. Move right now.
Get a music when we have musical chairs?
Yeah.
I could sing.
I don't think so.
Shouldn't make those offers in a public hearing.
I don't care. I like to embarrass myself.
And am I showing we still have 1 more minute? Okay.
Listen, I just evicted a pole into the studio in my place. You want to come and practice? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, our first 6:45 hearing is also a continued hearing from the July 25th meeting, 101 to 103 North Quinsigamon Avenue, Highlands Development Corp. The variances for division of 1 lot into 2. Is anyone here from,
He's out in the hallway.
okay. We are ready. If you could please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. and members of the board. My name is Richard Ricker, and I'm an attorney with offices at 11 Maple Avenue. Have a seat, gentlemen, in town here. And I'm representing the petitioner, who's sitting, see next to me, John McGill Jr. of Highfields Development Corporation, and his counsel is also Joseph Antonellis, who is a Milford attorney.
Good evening.
Milford, Hopedale, wherever, right?
Framingham also.
All over.
Thank you.
If I could, this is a, I do have a petition, if I could say that there's a number of neighbors that have signed a letter in favor of this request. This is a, what I would consider fairly unusual request, because this addresses a different type of hardship than what you are customarily requesting, what I'm customarily requesting relief for. This is a request which is born out of financial hardship. And as the board knows, financial hardship is clearly one of the types of hardship that is permissible for us to ask for relief from the liberal enforcement of the provisions of the zoning bylaw. In this particular case, there have been two residential structures constructed on one lot. The lot being approximately 80 feet wide at one point. By way of history, originally there were 3 structures on this lot, plus an additional foundation. I'm not sure what that additional foundation was for, but there were 3 structures on this lot. In about 2005, 2006, the planning board approved the construction of a single box structure with condominiums in it, 3 condominiums in it, which was intended to be condominiums. That plan was approved, however, never acted upon. Thereafter, Dean Handley came in, I think it was around 2006, and requested permission from this board for other relief relative to the construction of 3 separate buildings, which would be used for residential purposes again. And these 3 separate structures would lay on the lot. Some of you board members were on the board at that time. The basic premise being that this is a multifamily zone, it is a residential zone, and that plan was born out of discussions with the then building and zoning inspector and other officials in the town that felt that this would be a better situation for the neighborhood and for everybody involved, in as much as it wouldn't be one big box sitting on the side of that topographical nightmare of a place to build on. This is, and all of these previous requests were born out of the topographical hardship. Thereafter, Mr. McGill's predecessors I should say purchase and sales agreements on this property, came back to the board and requested, because they determined that the type of houses that were going to be built, if there were 3 houses situated on this lot, they were not going to have garages and certain amenities. And for that reason, they felt, and again, it was with the assent and agreement of some town officials that 2 houses were better than 3, and the houses that were going to be built would have garages, which is a desirable amenity for folks down in that area, and frankly anywhere in the Northeast because of our weather. So the plan was then changed the 3rd time to build 2 single houses on this particular lot. Those houses have been constructed. Those houses have been constructed. We're not here asking for permission to construct anything. What we're asking for is relief from the sideline setback in order to draw a line, as you can see in the plan in your packet, down the middle of the property. The sideline setback that we're asking for relief from is really the interior lot line in this lot. And the purpose of that is so that we can allow Mr. McGill, as the owner of the property, the developer of the property, to sell off these houses as single-family houses and not as condominiums. What's happened is, and I don't need to belabor the point, I think we're all aware that the financial markets have been roiled in recent years. The banking circumstances have changed dramatically. What we are faced with is turmoil that has caused the secondary markets and Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac to place more requirements on borrowers who are looking to purchase homes. Some of these additional issues have come to roost here because of the condominium type of ownership of these otherwise single-family houses. People have been having a hard time getting financed. Ironically, had he built 3 houses instead of 2, theoretically he could have actually even rented one of the houses, and it would have, and he would have still been able to try to get financing. But as it stands right now, he can't even lease one of these houses under the present Fannie Mae requirements and try to sell the other one because you just won't be able to get financing. A buyer will not be able to get financing. So this request is really born out of that hardship, which is the inability to sell these houses because of the inability for buyers to get financed. The buildings are built. He's had a number of people that have looked at them. I'm aware of 1, maybe 2 purchase and sales agreements that have fallen apart because of financing in this particular case. And we're asking for your relief based on the fact that it is a clear financial hardship that he finds himself faced with here. I would suggest to you respectfully that this is not a hardship that he has built himself. This is not a hardship that he brought onto himself. This is a situation really born out of the financial crisis and out of the banking situations and what's happened in the last few years while these houses were being planned and constructed. It's not his fault that the banks now require more than they did 5 years ago. What he finds himself dealing with is a market that is entirely different than what he had dealt with 5, 10 years ago. The request is clearly incidental just to this parcel. I would suggest to you respectfully that this is clearly incidental to only this parcel in this neighborhood. We have a situation, although there are other houses that are on smaller lots, this is clearly a long, narrow lot going down to the water. It has 2 houses already constructed on it. Again, we're not looking to build anything additional. We're looking to change the financial makeup of the saleability of these lots. I would suggest to you there's no derogation from the bylaw because this is a situation that you're still going to have residential use. It's clearly a residential use in a neighborhood where everybody else is residential, some condominiums, some single family. You do have both in this particular area. And there would be no harm to the neighbors from this request. There would be absolutely no harm to the neighbors from this request. The houses are already built. They're already there. This is just, and I should say that lightly, this is born out of a financial hardship that Mr. McGill finds himself in because of the banking situation as we're dealing with it today, which, as you know, changes all the time. You read it in the paper, it changes all the time. We don't know if there's some other requirement that's going to get thrown at him next week, but right now we know that because of the condominium ownership of these particular houses, or the originally planned condominium ownership of these particular houses, we're having problems selling them, and people are having a problem financing them. And with that, if you have any questions.
Hypothetically, is there a difference in selling price if this is
No.
granted?
No.
Would it sell more as a single-family house than as part of a condominium development?
Jay, you probably
We
just-
certainly don't plan on increasing the price if things go our way. We've actually been lowering
The prices have
price
been lowered
trying
and
to-
lowered and lowered. I mean, the prices have been lowered dramatically since the first listing of these.
We certainly would not raise the price of these houses if things go our way tonight.
Would you please identify yourself?
John McGill Jr.
Thank you.
15
So
McGill
she can
Drive in
have it.
Grafton.
And what is I know there's problems with the condominium market, but condominiums still, in some places, are selling. So is it just that you're not finding buyers with enough equity?
I think it's a combination of things, plus the fact that you have appraisers that come out and look at it and say this should be single-family and or whatever. I think you're dealing with a much more conservative viewpoint from every viewpoint, from the underwriter, from the appraiser, from everybody involved in the loan process.
Okay. Mr. George?
How big are the units?
Mr. McGill?
They're about 2,200 square feet.
Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, Richard, did you look at the possibility of use variances?
I did not.
This is multifamily, single-family houses are not the same.
Right.
I think this would be a good thing, but I just wonder if it remains multifamily, what is the problem? Is there a problem for the next owner?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well,
Do you understand?
are you dividing this lot into two single-family lots?
Yes.
But they then would become non-conforming in a multifamily zone.
Right.
Okay, would they stay that way?
Yes.
You both sure?
Yes.
Both sure?
Yes, they would maintain their status as a legal non-conforming use.
Okay.
Based on the grant of the variance, provided that the variance was
Okay.
properly recorded.
So then you wouldn't have to go for a use variance?
No.
No.
Okay.
Question.
Go ahead, Lisa.
That might answer my question. It's a historical one. When you came before whoever it was to get approval as a condominium, what was the reasoning behind that and not asking at that point to be single-family?
It's interesting that you asked that question. I think that probably goes back to the original request that I had done for Mr. Handley, when we changed from the box structure with 3 condos in it to the 3 residences. And you'll note, if you have the old decisions in front of you, that we were simply saying that it's going to be 3 houses, it's going to be 3 houses, it's going to be 3 houses. I think that the comment about condominiumizing came out because it was in a multifamily zone, and because we were taking units that were condos in a single box and spreading them out into 3 different houses.
If I remember correctly, when the 3 houses were, or the 3 condos of any shape were suggested, there were no garages,
Right.
and all of the
Right, that's
parking
what
was
they
up at
represented,
the
yeah.
street.
Yes, all the parking was up at the street.
And that was part of what made it a condo. It was
Right.
detached, but together.
Right, there was a single parking lot, if you recall. There were, I think,
Yeah.
8 or 12
Right.
parking spaces in a row on the right-hand side of the property as it was coming up the hill.
Mr. Shetsky?
Were these marketed as condominiums?
They were.
And when were they first on the market as condominiums?
Probably
a year or so.
year ago, yeah. And the price has been reduced by, I'd say, my estimate would be about 30% since then.
That's all.
Okay. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Okay. Anyone? We're all done?
No, I'm fine.
You okay? Okay. There'll be no further questions. We'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our second 6:45 hearing is to hear the appeal of Jekin LLC, 60 Edgerow Isle, Westminster, Massachusetts, for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 7, Table 2, to allow a side yard setback of 10 feet in a rural B district to create separate lots for an existing single-family dwelling and an adjacent new lot on property located at 165 Green Street. The subject premises is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 49, Plot 3. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Richard Ricker, and I'm an attorney with law offices at 11 Maple Avenue in town here, and I represent the petitioner, who is JEKN LLC, the manager of which is Peter Normandin, seated to my right, and to his right is John Grenier, our engineer. If I may, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this is a fairly straightforward request to allow a sideline setback here of 10 feet. The reason being that if there was, it all comes out of a problem with setbacks if you are to preserve the existing house there. The existing house on this property dates back to, as Peter said earlier to me tonight, before George Washington was even a boy. It's 1717. This is the existing house here. As you can see, and with relation to an 80,000 plus square foot lot, it's juxtaposed a little bit to the left of center. That poses the hardship that we have to deal with if we want to save this, what I would suggest to be a potentially historic treasure. Mr. Normandin would like to try to preserve this house. And in order to attempt to preserve the house, he needs this setback if he is going to be able to build two decent-sized houses on each side of it. Without this setback allowance, the house that would be on the left-hand lot, as you're looking at it from the street, would only be about 43 feet in length, which is substantially less than what your standard 3-4 bedroom colonial is in a neighborhood such as this has developed. As you know, you have Appaloosa coming up. The new road will be coming up this side here. Those are going to be large houses. The houses in this general vicinity have been, to say the least, large houses for the most part. With this setback of 10 feet, you still have some reasonable distance between the structures, but you could build a house that has approximately 60 feet in width, which is more in keeping with what, number one, he would like to build, and number two, is being built in the particular neighborhood and surroundings. This hardship is, as I suggest, the existing house. The existing house being old enough, 1717, to deserve the chance at renewal and renovation. The other hardship that we're faced with, or the other circumstance, topographical circumstance of the lot, is obviously that as you can see, the lot narrows as it goes to the rear of the premises. And that causes certain issues relative to the building envelopes as well, and to where we can place the houses to be built. I would suggest this is clearly incidental to this lot. It's incidental to this parcel. You have an 80,200 square foot parcel that is got a otherwise fine antique house that can be renovated, unfortunately, off-center. If it was in the middle of the lot, that would be fine. We wouldn't have an issue. If the house got knocked down, which could very well happen, then you'd split the lot up 3 ways. You wouldn't have any issues relative to the building of the other houses or the house in the middle. The simple fact is this is a request to try to save that old house. I would suggest that this request is not a derogation of the intent of the bylaw. This is going to be 3 single-family houses on this land, and it's a residential vicinity. It's a residential use. These will be single-family residential uses. There would be no harm to the neighborhood, I would suggest. There's going to be 3 houses here. People have the right to build houses on their land, and in this particular case, one way or the other, 3 houses will be built. It's really, very simply, a request to try to save the old house.
Question.
Yes.
If you build a conforming house in the left lot, what would the size be?
Conforming, it would be 40 to 43 feet wide.
But what would be the square footage? If you could max out and stay conforming?
I'd have to defer to the builder.
You'd probably end up with maybe a 1,500 square foot house.
Yeah, 1,500 to 1,800.
But the issue is, too, you wouldn't really be able to, and for the record, John Grenier, JM Grenier Associates, a typical colonial that you see all over town. The typical house box is 40 feet wide, 28 feet deep, and you have a 24 by 22 garage next to it. So you have about 68 foot in length. So you have, your house structure, your garage structure. With something like this, you only have, you could probably do a house with no garage, a 40-foot house box with no garage. If you did,
Garage in the rear?
Theoretically, sure.
theoretically,
No question.
theoretically, you could.
Not the most desirable from
Right. No,
from
no,
a
I
sales
understand
standpoint.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It just limits you as to what you really can build, and it's not going to be something that would be in keeping with the neighborhood and that area of town. I would also suggest in most other, in quite a few of the other residential zones, the required side yard setbacks are 10 feet. Because of the lot's configuration where it does narrow down, if you have a 20,000 square foot lot with 30-foot side yard setbacks, with the lot lines converging, it makes for an odd lot, and the 30-foot setback it just really limits you as to what you can build on those lots.
I have to tell you that from a long-term resident viewpoint, I think it's really important for us to consider the fact that someone is considering trying to save one of the old houses in Shrewsbury, because it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen a lot. And all too often we see a developer, anyone come in, not using developer in a bad way, come in and just knock down the house, knock down what's there, knock down what's there and just proceed along. And I have to say that I was enthused when Mr. Normandin came to me and said he wanted to try to save this house. Because I think that it's something worth saving, historically.
So let me ask another question. Let's assume that we turn it down and you can't save the house. What's the options on the three? You're building three properties.
If you turn us down, then I guess he has two options. One, build a smaller house. Two, knock the house down and build three big houses. His daughter is an architect, I understand, and it's her fervent desire to see this house preserved. That is also one of the factors that Mr. Normandin suggested is behind this, is to try to save that house.
I guess the other option, which is probably just as undesirable as putting the garage in the back, would be to turn the house 90 degrees.
We looked at that. And that was one of the first things that I asked, and it really does affect marketability. People just want to see that colonial with the two-car garage next to it.
Mr. Chetsky?
What about it appears as though there's more room to the rear in terms of the width of the house. Is there a reason that you can't go back a little bit with that, with a house situated on the left lot in that manner? I mean, do you get more width if you go back? Because you can change that, you can change the lot line.
Well, you do with this particular design, absolutely, yeah. But this is the design with the lot lines as we're asking you to allow them. John, maybe you want to...
No, I'm suggesting that if you have the 30-foot side setback on the middle lot.
Can't you preserve, I think what Dale's saying is, can you preserve the house, still build the house the size you want if you push the house back?
If you push the house towards the back.
It'll be on the septic. It'll be on the septic system.
It gets a little bit wider, you're correct, as you go back. We do have a raised septic system.
All the perks are back there.
We did perks. We did try to do perks at the front because the elevations are lower, but the soils weren't suitable at the front. We did find suitable soils at the back, so if we did push the house back, it could get a little bit bigger, but then behind the house, your backyard would be a mound.
Immediate backyard would be a mound.
So you'd be looking at a mounded hill.
So you got to have curb appeal from the front, you can't have a mound in the back.
Another topographical issue, I might add.
You're creative.
Well, There's no question that this is substantially born out of the desire to save that old house, Paul. There's no question.
Mr. Gordon?
Sorry, Mr. George, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Norman, would you, if the variance was granted, be willing to put a deed restriction on this center lot so that this is the house that's there, and it's gone and done, and you're not going to further subdivide the lot or anything else?
Yeah, my only intention would be the 3 lots. And believe me, I'm only here tonight because of my daughter, and I don't know who here has daughters.
I have two.
But she's an architectural, she has architectural interest, and she is on, please, consider this, she is on my case on this one. You know, Dad, 1717, George Washington wasn't even a kid, you know.
So you'd have no trouble with a deed restriction of some type that would preserve the property as,
Yeah, I think...
I mean, not a historic site, because you didn't go, you're not creating a historic district, but as a historic house on a lot that will remain the lot in perpetuity.
I think, Mr. Gordon, that once the lots are established in this fashion, that would do it anyway, because the plan would be of record and the lot lines would remain as they are. If that old house...
Yeah, but you could still
You could still
subdivide
rip it
this.
down and put a house in the middle.
This 80,000, you have 50 feet, it looks like you might
Oh, I
have
see what you're saying.
55.
I see what you're saying.
And you might have a rear lot, an ability for a rear lot there. I just don't want to see that.
I see.
And I have a daughter also, and they can be tough.
I think a deed restriction in form to make sure that it remains a single-family lot, I don't see any issue with that at all. Although I
Not to be further subdivided.
Yeah, I get nervous when I say any other kind of deed restriction, as you know.
That's all I'm asking.
But not to be further subdivided, that...
Yeah, we're only here for, there's 3 lots anyway,
Yeah.
We're only here for the 3 lots.
and you know why I'm here.
Mr. Chair, may I add? I know there's some wetlands proximate to this site. Could Mr. Grenier or someone else describe where those wetlands are in proximity to the existing building and the proposed building footprints?
Well, there is,
Not that I think it's relevant.
no, there is an area that is wet. Whether it has been determined to actually be bordering vegetated wetland is still up for debate. But there's an area right in the rear portion that it appears at one point was an old cow pond.
So there's nothing on the lot that's in question and the setback lots?
No,
There's
no, it's in this area.
So it's irrelevant of this discussion. Thank you.
Of this discussion, however, it has been the subject of considerable discussion in the engineering department in the past. There's no question about that.
Anyone else up here? Fred?
No questions.
Do you have anything else? No. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, there being no further questions, we will take it under advisement, and you'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first 7 p.m. hearing is to hear the appeal of Paul and Kelly Kemp, 21 Faulkner Road, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 7-C, to allow the construction of an in-ground pool in the Residence A District, 10 feet from the rear property line upon property located at 21 Faulkner Road. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 47, Plot 101. Could you please state your name for the record?
Paul Kemp, good evening. The general request, which was attached to the application that I filed, relates to a hardship, which relates to essentially the grading of the property. I have 2 daughters as well, who've been bugging me for years to put a pool in, and so we're finally talking about that. The issue is, and I brought a couple of pictures to allow for some visual aid here. The issue is that although there's plenty of room in the rear of the property, the grade...
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Are you prepared to let us keep these?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have copies here. I'm sorry I didn't bring multiple copies. I have three pictures here. One is a view of the backyard from an existing deck, which shows the rear of the property and the area where we would propose to put the pool, which is essentially where you'll see a swing set currently. There's another picture which is taken from which is number 2, you'll see, which is taken from essentially where the swimming pool we would propose, the proposed location of the pool, looking back up at the house to give you an idea of the distance from the house as well as the grade coming from the house to the back of the property. And then the third picture is essentially just a side view that shows sorry. It's just a side view that basically shows the same area. So my request relates to essentially the grading of the property. The flattest part of the lot is the back of the property. The area between the deck and where the swing set currently sits is sloped backwards towards the swing set. In rainstorms, one of which we just had the other day, yesterday, or Sunday, I'm sorry, water essentially, as you can imagine, runs down towards the swing set area before exiting to the side of the house. And in speaking with several different pool companies, essentially the common theme has been that there would be a requirement to really deal a lot more with drainage issues if the pool was conforming with the 20-foot rear setback. So the suggestion was that we could avoid that significant regrading. There is going to be some regrading that would be required in any event, but to avoid the significant regrading and really changing the topography of the backyard, if we could move the pool slightly towards the back, it would be helpful. So that's what we're hopefully looking to do.
I was out there today and took a look at it, and I can see that that's a level area, or mostly level, and that it's an easier place to construct a pool. But it didn't. Two things occurred to me. One is that the area closer to the deck, which is where the pool would have to go if we didn't approve this, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Is really only maybe 3-4 feet higher than the lowest area.
I would say that's probably
and
accurate.
Being a pool owner myself, you might want to consider that you're putting the pool in the shade by putting it back there.
Well, we actually would be taking a few trees out. But the way, again, of course we looked at this. The way the sun comes up, east to west, essentially that does get significant amount of sun until the afternoon, when you go past 2-3 o'clock. So there would be a couple of trees that would have to come out. But generally speaking, the sun shines from the front of the house. So if you were there, you'd see it probably. It's not going to be that big of an issue in terms of the shade. Yeah.
That's my only question. Other than that, it seems fine to me.
Did you speak to any of your abutters in regards to this?
Yes, I did.
What's their feeling on this?
I spoke to the abutter in the back who would be most directly impacted because we're asking to push towards the back. And he actually said something pretty funny. We have 2 dogs that constantly bark at him in the backyard. He said that would be great because then...
Bring the dogs out.
Right. So I did say to him we would put a nice fence around and we actually put some arborvitae just for privacy so that that wouldn't be an issue. And he said no problem at all.
Okay.
So.
I'm all set.
Fred?
I don't have a problem.
Okay, anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Okay, there be no further questions, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second 7 p.m. hearing is to hear the appeal of Thomas Hawkins, 26 Bridle Path, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 4-B, for a second floor expansion and for a variance for a 19.7-foot front yard setback for a porch from Section 7, Table 2. The property is located at 17 Honey Ave and is the Residence B1 District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 29, Plot 105. Please state your name for the record.
Tom Hawkins. I'm usually the homeowners at 17 Huntington. Tim and Beth Betts. So the property's pre-existing non-conforming, and as is the majority of the properties on Huntington Ave. The interest is to do get the special permit to be able to raise the roof. Essentially, the existing property, there's like knee walls, and there's not much headroom in the second floor. Another problem with the second floor is the bedrooms are on the second floor, and there's no bathroom on the second floor. And there was some damage this past winter due to ice dams. So the homeowner is looking to, besides fix some of those problems, to actually raise to normal height ceilings.
It's the second floor there currently, correct?
There's a second floor, but it's only, the outer walls are
Right.
about 4 feet tall.
Okay.
So we feel that, and several of the other houses in the area also have second floors.
Okay.
So that's nothing new. The actual setback from the curb, if that's where the lot line was, would meet the setbacks. It's just that on the street, which most of the houses were built in the early 60s, I'm not sure if the zoning was different at the time.
Much.
So I think that's the rub.
And that's basically a representation of the farmer's porch as well?
Yes. And the farmer's porch is on the further end, which actually encroaches less on the desired setback. Took a look at a lot of the other properties, and they're all pretty much consistent as far as setbacks.
I knew you wouldn't.
No, I was in favor of making this as a matter of right years ago.
I know. That's why I knew you wouldn't. Anyone else?
No.
No? No? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Okay, if there be no further questions, we will take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Our first 7:15 hearing is to hear the appeal of Marjorie Hastings O'Connell, 25 Bay Path Drive, Boylston, Mass.
I'm going to recuse myself from this one.
Okay. For a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning...
Whichever.
Lisa. For a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 4-B, for a request to expand an existing non-conforming structure in a multifamily residential district for property located at 5A Cottage Ave. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 31, Plot 48. So could you please state your name for the record?
Michael Maroney. Marjorie Hastings.
Okay, and you're here in what role other than representing her?
Structural engineer.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, I only have this copies of the picture.
That's fine.
Thank you. See that little community house there you building?
Okay.
The house is an existing, non-conforming, two-story, two-family home. At the front of the house, there is a single-story section, flat roof, with a parapet
about a foot high that runs around the roof. And we have difficulty with it, that it leaks in winter and if there's a heavy rain. And this is how Carl would like to extend the second floor by roofing over that and enlarging one of the apartment units. We're not attempting to build a third unit into the property to solve the problem and to enlarge the unit on the second floor.
Okay.
So basically, he's fixing the problem.
Do you want to speak up, Mr. George? So you can hear.
So basically, he's just fixing the leaking problem and expanding the second-story apartment.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. Ms. Cosette?
Internal to the structure, it looks like you're adding a 14 by 19 area.
Yes.
Will that be another bedroom, or what will it be?
It will actually expand the bed. There's a
Existing
slider
bedroom?
door. The bedrooms upstairs are quite small.
Okay.
That'll expand the size of that bedroom.
So you're just enlarging one of the rooms?
Yes.
Inside?
Mr. Brewer?
Thank you.
I have no problem.
Yeah. All set. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, if there being no further questions, we will take it under advisement.
You want this back,
It's
sir?
part of our decision. I need to keep one. Our second 7:15 hearing is to hear the appeal of Peter Bates, 12 Fifth Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass. For variance to the town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 7, Table 2, for a rear yard setback of 24.5 feet to construct 2 decks in a Residence B1 district for property located at 13 Fifth Avenue. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 31, Plot 8. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mo Azizi. I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Bates, who are sitting at the audience. The reason we are here tonight is to request a variance for setback requirement to construct two decks, one within each other's footprint, within the rear setbacks. Just to give you a background for consideration on this, project actually, Mr. and Mrs. Bates actually living on the Fifth Avenue. I think if I'm not mistaken,
Thank you.
they're at number 12 Fifth Avenue, and they started this project, actually bought this property last year to build this house to be closer to the water and to try to enjoy the view at that location. Originally, this project was presented to the board last year for a variance, requesting for a variance for the actual footprint of the building. And the original deck was part of the original plan, but they, just before the board's review, they took it off the plan for reconsideration, and also due to the drainage easement that's located within the property. This year, Mrs. Bates actually continued the construction, and they looked at different options to see if instead of the deck they can go with even a patio in the back to be able to use that space behind the house. But since Mrs. Bates' health deteriorated, she's not going to be able to use any steps. Actually, this year they changed the design of the house to provide a stair elevator so she can access the upper level of the house. And one of the reasons actually they really like to have the deck out is as I say, to be able to in the same level as the house, so they can step up and enjoy the view of the water. like their neighbors to the left and to the right.
One of the hardships is a health issue.
That's right. And the other consideration is, if you look at it, the drainage easement basically covers most of the back area. And we try to actually work within, to be outside of the easement and be able to achieve that deck footprint.
Okay. Mr. Gordon?
Is this going to be remain a one-family house?
That's right.
Okay, and the darker green, the smaller deck, is that the second floor?
The darker green is actually the lower deck, which is 24.5 feet from the rear of the lot, and the upper 4x8 comes out from the second floor out.
That's what I was asking.
That's
Is that
right.
the one that comes out from the 4x8?
That's right.
Okay, and the other one?
It's,
There's a deck there now, is there not?
There's no deck back there.
Oh,
No.
I thought I saw one. Oh.
Yeah.
And the problem that they had last time was a corner of the building, wasn't it?
I believe so.
And that's been corrected.
Has that been corrected?
Yes, actually, the original contractor constructed the deck in the wrong location, so after the NAS-built this year, they found out that the corner of the building is within half a foot into the easement, so under the new supervision, new contractor, the owners actually cut the whole foundation and pushed it back.
Okay.
Due to the configuration of this lot, I mean, there's really no other place to put this deck.
No.
Exactly.
And be in compliance with the bylaw. Okay.
Just so you know, we did get a letter from one of your neighbors opposing.
I wasn't aware of it.
What's that?
I was not there.
Okay, yeah.
Does this have to go to conservation?
I was going to ask that same question. I believe it does.
We already went through the conservation, and basically they postponed the matter to the zoning. Basically, it's a zoning issue. They have no problem as far as it's a minimal effect into the, within the resource area.
Okay. Does anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Okay. And anyone else? No questions? Okay, we will take another advisement, and you'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Our first 7:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Richard Wall, 8 School Street, Shrewsbury, Mass., for variance of the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7, Table 2, to extend the deck 13 feet from the rear property line on an existing non-conforming single-family home in the Residence B1 district upon property located at 325 to 327 North Quinsigamon Avenue. The subject premise is described on Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 19, Plot 32. Have a seat.
Evening,
Please
Rich
state your
Wall,
name for the record.
Wall Properties. Rich Wall, Wall Properties. I'm not so sure that that was described correctly. Did it say 13 feet?
Extend the deck 13 feet from the rear property line.
We're extending the deck just 5 feet off the house by 10 feet.
But it's going to be 13 feet.
13 feet.
Yeah, it will
Off
be,
the property,
yes,
yeah,
it will.
okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be 13 feet from the lake.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what he's talking about, I
Yes.
believe.
Yep.
I just want to make sure.
And I guess the first question I would have is your hardship.
Well, the hardship is I don't have the rear setback, I guess, and I'd like to put a deck off of the three-season room, which has an existing slider in it, to go out to a deck, but I didn't know that I would have to come before you to put that on. Both my other neighbors do have decks off that side of the lake. This is a very small deck that I'd be adding just to go out and view the lake and what have you.
Where do those sliders go to now?
Nowhere. They're actually blocked off with I have a railing there so that there's no danger there.
So this would just
Be a little porch. Yes, exactly. Instead of going out of the house on the North Quincy side, if you will, and going down the stairs to see the lake, from upstairs, you could just go out that slider and sit out there and what have you, to see the lake.
You don't have 40 feet anywhere in the rear of that?
No, sir.
All right,
But
so
it's not really a deck, it's really a little porch.
It's a platform, if you will. Not so much a,
And by,
you know,
This is a neighborhood where
it's 5
everybody-
by 10. I mean, it's only, you know,
Barely get a
you
chair.
could probably put
Yeah.
a couple chairs out there or a chaise lounge or something and sit there and look out.
Small chaise.
It's Just about.
This is a neighborhood where you have to like your neighbor, huh?
Yes, sir.
That would have been my next question. Did you talk to your neighbors about this?
The neighbors should be fine with it. Yeah, I know
They're not
them real
here,
well,
okay.
and I don't think there'd be any problem at all.
Okay.
I'm fine.
As am I.
You all set? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? There be no further questions. We will take it under advisement.
Thank you very much.
Notified of our decision. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And our final 7:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Casa Builders and Developers, Post Office Box 1205, Westboro, Mass., for a variance under Section 7-B4A to allow a sign within 5 feet of the front property line, for a special permit under Section 6, Table 1, to allow garages and repair shops in a commercial business district, and for a variance from Section 7, Table 2, footnote C,
Thank you.
for an exception to the sidewalk requirement to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw upon property located at 37 Rear Clue Street. The subject premise is described on Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 53, Plot 41-4. If you could please state your name for the record.
I'm Steve Benincasa, 6 McIntosh Road, Westboro.
Rod St. Pierre, attorney for Stephen. Stephen has been building and developing for many years in Worcester County. This particular property, he has entered into a purchase and sale agreement, and that's why we're here this evening. The proposal, number one, has a special permit for a repair garage, will consist of a development of 3 buildings. The first building that I've highlighted on your plans in green will be constructed to the rear of the property here, and then depending on market conditions, the balance of the property. Stephen plans on using at least one of those bays, and the bays are roughly 55 feet by 30 feet, for his own construction vehicles for the repairs. And whether or not he uses 1 or 2, the others he plans on renting and putting on the market for rental. Again, depending on what happens in the marketplace, the front property, again, he feels the highest and best use is the repair garages. If somebody comes along and wants to use it as a retail operation, definitely he'd consider all of that. If it would trigger a site plan review if it brought in more than 20 parking spaces, which he's very well aware of. But he really doesn't know what the market is going to dictate and generate, what's going to happen at that point in time. The other misnomer that we have is the rear of Clue Street. This property does not front on Clue Street. The only access to Clue Street basically is for water and sewer connections, utilities. I think there's an easement there, but that will never be used. And again, Stephen would have no problem in putting a restriction there that access would be strictly from Route 20 and not onto Clue Street. The application is threefold. There's 2 variance requests and 1 special permit. Again, a variance deals primarily with shape, topography, and soil conditions. The first variance is before you is for sidewalk. There's no sidewalks on Route 20 except in Edgemere. And I propose that there should not be any sidewalks in this section of Route 20 because I just don't think it would be safe. It would serve absolutely no purpose to any abutting property. That being said, the soil condition, again, the property has a fair amount of wetlands, which would then impede the construction of any type of sidewalk. So it just really wouldn't be feasible, and that the hardship would definitely be the wetlands. The next issue is the signage. We're proposing the sign to be developed, constructed 5 feet from the edge of the property line, which is roughly 20 feet from the edge of pavement. The sign would be on the right side or the eastbound side of the driveway, so when you exit onto Route 20, it would not impede your visibility to the westerly side towards the bridge under Grafton Street. The Again, the requirement now is 37 feet. I specifically state that and feel that this would create a traffic issue because people, I mean, if you tell somebody where you're located, you tell them on the corner of Route 20 and 140, they slow down, start to look for a sign. If this is 37 feet back, especially with the bridge there and the way that the land is sloped around that corner, you'll never see it. 5 feet is probably realistic from the engineering firm that Steve hired. They feel that's the best line of sight that would provide access for safe viewing, if you will. And then if you come down westerly off of Route 20, there's over a rise there, and all of a sudden you're on top of the property. So to have it set back 37 feet definitely would create a hardship to this site. I think it would create a problem from a traffic flow situation. It would not really be very prudent to do it that way. Again, the special permit is an allowed use in a commercial business district by way of a special permit, and that's again why we're here, for the repair garage. There, again, this request is not going to be much more detrimental to the neighborhood. Again, the neighborhood consists pretty much of many repair garages with Flynn there, Pete's Tire Barn, Knight's Limousine Service right next door, the car wash. Again, the repair garage is in keeping with definitely in that section of Route 20. As far as noise, traffic, unsightliness, noise is a big thing, again, on Route 20 with the volume of traffic. We were at the back of the property today talking to the neighbor back here, and Stevens, and it's very loud back there. So Stevens already talked to them. He would, they would either construct a sign or a landscape barrier, whatever they would like. In fact, the neighbor suggested that they would prefer to see the building up first and then talk to see what would be best. Stevens' plans is that this would be a blank building, be no windows in the back at all. So, and it would provide a very nice buffer because of the traffic coming in off of Route 20. Again, any repairs would be within the garage, would not be outside. Again, this is strictly for his own vehicles, at least to start, and then we'll see where the tenants are going from there. On the plan, there's one dumpster, and as this property's developed, there'd be part of the lease, and again, we'll put this in the restriction if you care to, all the buildings would use the one dumpster, so we're not overloading the dumpster. The other thing about unsightliness, much of this property is wetlands, and again, Chris Christopher has gone through extensive requirements, if you will, with the state and getting the site the way it is today. And I think it's going to be a beautiful site. I mean, you've got so much vegetation here to buffer it. From Route 20, the rear building is 400 feet back. You're not even going to see it just by the way the driveway is sloped coming into the property. And I think it's an enhancement to the area. I really do. I mean, I own property in Route 20. I'd love to see this as a property owner, as a neighbor and a butter, and I think it's a good use. I mean, Steve asked me to come here tonight. I'm going to charge him, but I come here free because I own property, and I think it makes sense for this section of Route 20. We need development. We need people like Stephen to come forward and start developing stuff. I mean, the market stinks. I mean, I'm a real estate attorney. I know that, and we all know that. We all read the news. But this is a good use for this site, and I would, as a property owner and a butter in town, I highly recommend and suggest the board approve it. And as Stephen's attorney, I would like you to do that. Again, the one issue that the butters talked about was the hours of operation. Steve did talk to them. Their concerns is that they would like them to be no more than 7 to 7 Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 on Saturday with no Sunday hours, and Stephen is agreeable to that.
They also requested no outside repairs.
Right, which we're also agreeable to, yeah. These are things that Stephen has already talked to them, and I think that's probably why they're not here this evening. So,
okay, so you're okay, we write that into the decision?
Absolutely, yeah, and again, have no problem with that whatsoever.
Mr. Gordon.
This driveway is a 26-foot driveway?
Yes.
Did I read that?
Yes.
Kristen, since we're going to trying to change the bylaw to make those driveways narrower, could they make this narrower?
Well, we're only suggesting to change the zoning bylaw, which will be at the fall town meeting
yeah.
for a common driveway. This is not considered a common driveway because it's all one lot.
Okay.
So I believe they've designed the driveway to be considerate of the wetlands because there is a crossing, but also to provide for a standard that meets what types of vehicles and use will be on the property.
Okay, so you don't feel that a narrower driveway would be more beneficial?
Correct.
Okay. I'm just looking at impervious surface. Is that the word?
Yes.
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 My concern with this, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great concept. I think you have to go back to the state for a number of things because they granted you superseding orders for the curb cut and the wetlands. So I don't think we have anything to do with that, do we?
No, the Mass DOT would be granting the curb cut permit because it's on Route
Yep.
20, and they'd be going to the DEP as well as submitting to the local conservation commission for the wetland impacts.
Okay, my other concern is the 19 spaces and a small thing that you said, that it's going to start out as a repair garage, but sometime in the future, Steve might want to bring in retail. Now, retail has a whole different
I understand.
set of parking,
Right.
and it's an enforcement issue.
Right. We don't, and Stephen, and I agree with Stephen, feel that retail's realistic in that section of Route 20. I mean, Joe Farrell's got a little strip mall, and he's had a hell of a time trying to rent space, and that's a nice strip mall. A building like this, freestanding, I don't think is going to generate a retail operation, from what I know of Route 20. And again, but you never know. Somebody's out there.
We granted one down in Edgemere.
But again, if it changes the parking configuration, we know we have to come back and go to the planning board for site plan review. Absolutely. And you can put that into the record. We have no problem with that whatsoever.
As I said, it's an enforcement issue, and that's the thing that concerns me. Because once we do these things,
But it's still an enforcement
We don't
issue
want to
through
go
the building department. They still got to issue building permits. I mean, you got to file building plans. I mean, I think
And they can
that would
enforce
trigger it. I mean, that would
And they
trigger.
can enforce now.
yeah, okay.
I mean, I think that would trigger if
That's my other
there was an
concern.
issue.
And the other concern, you sort of mentioned it, that I have, is I'd like to see this listed as Southwest Corridor for Hartford Turnpike as opposed to Clue Street.
Absolutely. And I started that way, saying this really shouldn't be Clue Street.
No, I think the town, who does that? The town clerk?
The assessors.
The assessors? Okay, so,
So once the parcel's built upon, or a building permit,
Yep.
the assessor assigns the address, so we can instruct the assessor's office to assign it the next appropriate Hartford.
I don't think there's any frontage on Clue Street.
I don't believe there
Excuse-
is.
Chris, is there any frontage on Clue Street? Do you remember? No, just an access.
was there?
There was frontage, and there was a house that was built.
Okay.
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
The property
Chris Christopher.
Okay.
Right.
That's the only problems I have.
Right now, it's listed as 37 rear Clue Street, which
Right.
is not a real address for this.
No, okay.
Yeah, whatever, I mean, I'd be happy to talk to the assessor to have him assign a number for Hartford Pike, and I'd be happy with that.
Well, we'll leave that in your office then.
I will take care of that, note that for the record. I want to make sure Mr. Gordon's happy.
I would love to be happy.
I know that.
I have no other problems with this.
Anything?
Do you have any details on the proposed signage? What type of sign?
We do not. We had just had a generic 8-foot poles with a 6-foot sign in between it, and we don't have any as per yet. Does that have to get approved by the building department?
Yes, you'd have to go for a building permit for the sign
Okay.
as an individual building permit.
Right. And we would definitely comply with whatever zoning requires for that site. Would not trigger a further meeting with this board for a variance.
Well, that's my question.
The setback is just, the setback's the biggest issue, and again, I think for visibility and really creating a,
Well, my question is, you're going to go for like a lighted sign, internally lighted, directed, there's a lot of things that we're not,
I don't think Steve knows, we haven't gone that far.
so I'm wondering if.
Yeah, but if this is a construction business,
That's true, yeah.
it's going to be plain vanilla.
I mean, this started with Stephen using this property for his use. And because of the way the configuration, well, maybe we can add a building as market dictates. But he plans on using at least 1 or 2 of those bays. And what he doesn't use, he'll rent. And then if there's other interest, then build a building.
And in our bylaw, we really don't regulate lighted versus unlighted in this
No, not
particular
yet.
district.
There's
So
no
really, the
neighbors,
only
there's
issue
really
is
no-
the setback, which they're complying, and then when they submit their building permit to Patty, she'll
Right.
reference this variance decision. If it complies, they'll
Okay.
be.
Anyone?
I got a question.
He's next to you.
Mr. George?
Ron, will this be developed as the market dictates? Or will
Absolutely.
the whole thing be done and...
No, the only building that's going to be built is the rear building, the three bays. That, and then the driveways will come in, the utilities will be brought in, and then you sit and wait. You market it, give it to brokers to go out and market and see what's out there. Absolutely. That's why I said, with not knowing what's going to come through, I mean, you could have, some retailer come forward, say loves it, and who the hell loves it, and you go from there. But and then we'd reconfigure it, we'd probably eliminate the third building, parking, because that would trigger different parking
Right.
issues.
Yeah.
So you got the flexibility to get rid of a building if you had to, but the wetlands configuration, it really dictates the amount of space you can have and the location of the buildings. And your footprint is pretty close to what you see there.
Thanks. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard? Which I would be surprised.
My only concern is that on all of our boards,
Yes, sir?
so long as you tell us the truth and tell us what you're gonna do,
Yeah.
we're wonderful. But
Amen.
if you're not gonna tell us the truth and you're not gonna do what you say, I think you'll find a hard time.
Well, sir, I can tell you that I am telling you the truth as much as I know it.
That's good.
And that's why I specifically said that we're going to build one building here, and we're going to attempt to do, we've actually rotated the front building more towards, the original design had the front building located perpendicular to Route 20. We've kitty-cornered the building to have it front more towards the driveway and Route 20 with the hopes that we can that the real retail, but Rod has stated my case as good as I could have.
What I was saying is, since it's such a tight
Did a good
fit,
job.
Right.
if there's a problem, come and talk to someone before
Absolutely.
there's trouble.
Mr. Gordon, if that were the case, I'm sure he would be here with new representation at the next meeting.
No, again, I talked to Stephen about that, because if it does change, the use changes, then we know another building's going to get eliminated.
Yep.
And again, is it financially feasible to do that? You'd make that decision at that point in
Okay.
time. But where that wetlands sit, you really can't do much more than what you see there,
Okay.
or less. You can't do more. You can only do less.
Right.
I
Just
swear.
watch
I
where
swear-
you
I
put the
swear to
sign,
God.
so that you don't get a Dodge coming off
Right.
140 bumping into it.
No, the sign, I think, is the most important part of that, because again, you got to see it. I mean, it's very easy that people we're at 140 and 20, and all of a sudden you get people stopping in the road looking around and looking for a driveway. So if you're out in front, you can see the bridge interferes with that, the slope, then you got that rise coming by the old W.D. Smith building, you come down, all of a sudden you're on top of it. So I think that's I think the engineer was right on point when he proposed that.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
We will take it under advisement.
Very
We'll
good.
be notified of our decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I always tell the truth.
Presentation. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Even to my wife. Thank you, folks.
Oh, that's, I couldn't remember.
You trusting me with your pens?
Yeah.
Probably swiped them.
Whoops. Okay. Okay, the first one.
All the way back.
Where is my agenda? Did you guys vote on,
No.
on Lucchese to withdraw, to allow withdrawal?
Yes.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Okay. Redland Street Boulay, that we voted on, I believe. Missed. And that has been unanimously approved. Oh, thank you.
At least they do. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Next is 101 to 103 North Quincy. Division of one lot into two.
I have to tell you, I think this is a
Questions, comments?
practical, I think this is a practical use of the land. I don't think this is a situation where they started out to avoid the bylaw. And I think from a building inspector point of view, this is probably the best use, dividing it into two. I think as a one, I agree, it's a financial problem, but also it probably never should have been a condominium, but that's not the proponent's problem.
And it's not going to really change anything.
It's making it better.
I mean,
I don't think it makes it better or worse. I think it's just
Well, we started
makes it
out
easier to
with-
sell.
We started out with buildings that didn't have a garage. Okay? Now we got two buildings with garages. We started out with a real slum, and now we don't have a real slum.
I understand that.
Yeah.
My concern question is, what are we approving?
We're approving 2 lots.
You're approving
No,
three
no,
variances.
I understand in a practical sense, but my
Well-
question is, it's, as was represented, it's like market conditions changed, and we're being asked to grant relief for that reason.
That's probably true.
So-
I'm willing to grant that relief.
I'm up in the air. The question for me is, it's, I did ask the question, what would be the selling price, versus, housing versus
Probably the
condominiums?
same.
Well, I would probably think not. I think the price will go down more as a condominium. But my question is it the purpose of this board to preserve or try to maintain market stability or market price? Yes,
I have a comment, but it goes
feel free.
back, not considering the argument that was put before us today. This was brought up, it was on the agenda for our last meeting, and prior to hearing anything, just looking at what was presented to us, I had a comment that I was in favor of this. This made a lot of sense to me. It's very logical. I felt it was fair to future owners of these 2 parcels, because the side yard setback between them is the same. It's not that wasn't the case before, and I don't think it's a detriment at all to neighbors on either side. I just saw nothing but positives. But you make an interesting point. The argument before us this evening was financial hardship.
And that doesn't come into play when...
Well, it can, but I can see it coming into play. That's the only consideration. There's absolutely nothing else. If there is, I missed it. If there was any other hardship, or if there was any other mitigating factor. But we're really being asked to provide relief because he's having a hard time selling as built. And I don't know if that's really our purview or the purpose of our board.
Well, I believe we should grant relief, and that's where I am.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other?
Well, I think I understand your point, but I agree with Mr. Gordon in that whether they're eventually sold as condominiums or they're sold in a shorter time frame as single-family homes, I don't think it makes any difference. And it makes a difference to the community, and it makes a difference to the appellant.
Well, I understand it makes a difference to the appellant, but why does it make a difference to the community?
If they'll be occupied properties as opposed to...
Well, I think one day there'll be occupied properties.
Well, I understand that.
Regardless.
But there's no difference between 2 detached condominiums on a common lot, really, versus 2 single-family homes on individual lots.
Well, there is a financial one.
Yeah, that's
So let's go back to your point of this being a financial one, and I believe the argument before us is valid. Fannie Mae is not granting condos.
I agree.
And it is a job of this board to consider financial hardship, right? It is.
It is.
It is. topographical and geographical hardship, but also financial, so.
Well, I would, to have a hypothetical conversation, let's say lot size changes. Is it then our board's position that we should grant variances to splitting every lot in town because people then took a hit?
I think every
That's a
issue-
financial, that would be a financial
I
hardship.
think every issue is a separate issue, and we've said
No,
that.
I understand that, but I'm
every
just-
time, so
Yeah.
I don't think that's a valid proposal.
I'm, making a point.
Okay.
Can I ask this?
You absolutely
this- Let's say we grant this, or is there, we would be setting a precedent? Is
No,
there anything
No,
we have to
everyone
worry
stands on
about?
its own.
It's
Everyone
property by
stands on its own.
property.
Everyone stands on its own. No two properties are alike.
Well, that make, I'm for it. I haven't heard anything yet to sway me, I guess. That would have been my only worry.
No, that doesn't. Everything stands on its own as.
It's just so much better than what is there right now, or,
Well,
What's
what's
there?
there is not changing.
well, was there, as far as zoning, and that made no sense to me, what was there before, but, sorry, previous board. The condo thing, in a multifamily.
Okay.
I'm ready to vote.
Who's not, you're not voting on this one?
I'm out.
You're out, okay. Okay, all in favor?
I'm in favor.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Passes 3-2.
Hmm?
Passes 3-2.
Doesn't pass 3 to 2.
No? Is
Has to
it?
be 4 to 5, 4 to 1.
4 to 1.
4-1?
Okay.
Next is subdividing into 165 Green Street.
I would like to vote for it with a restriction that the lot won't be further subdivided.
I have a hard time with this one, too,
Why?
because you can build a house there that will conform without
I
requiring a
just said it
variance.
cannot be further subdivided, so that...
No,
you
you
do
can
it.
build a house on that lot, on that left-hand lot. It'd be a small house, but you can build a house on that lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really, he could tear the old house down, build 3 compliant lots, but now you're tearing down a house that's almost 300 years old. So I'm kind of in favor of just preserving the old character of the town.
But he could still keep the old
You could
house.
still keep the old house and build a house on that lot that would be a smaller house.
Oh, a smaller house being in compliance.
And then he wouldn't need the 10-foot setback.
Yeah.
Well, I gave you my thoughts.
Yeah, there would be 2 colonials, and then it would be whatever. I'm
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Could you give me this one back? Here you go. Next is 21 Faulkner Road, the in-ground pool.
This one is,
I see no problems, no issues, no neighbors, no issues. Anything to discuss, or?
It's really the right place for the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have no problem with it.
so long as he gets his daughters to clean it.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Can you sign this one, too? You want it there.
Are we signing 2 of them here?
One, which one? Did I miss
3 of
one?
them.
Oh, I
Good
missed.
catch.
I think we
Signed
all
on the
missed
first
one.
page.
Yeah. Good catch, Mr. Gordon.
Okay.
Which one is that one?
101, 103.
Next is,
Only one on this one.
Paying attention now.
yeah,
Yep.
I'll take my pen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hunting Avenue, special permit and variance, second floor expansion and porch. I'm with Mr. Gordon on that one. I think they should have a right to go up.
Yep.
And porch is a nice idea.
It's an enhancement to the
Yeah.
property.
Vote on the special permit. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Vote on the variance, the front yard setback on the porch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You have two sheets. 13 Fifth Avenue, Mr. Bates. Variance on those two decks.
Wait,
What about cottage?
Did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry.
Five-A cottage.
Sorry about that. Who's the next one here?
Excuse me for calling you.
That was the mitigate some water problems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No?
Cottage Ave was going up.
Going up,
Yeah, he had a leaky roof.
He had a leaky
The
roof.
back deck.
had a leaky roof, a leaky flat roof, and they're going up.
Right. Non-conforming.
Is this the non-conforming?
Here's two
Yeah.
on this one.
They're doing some nice work on that street.
And there's nowhere else to put the deck,
No,
so I
there
was
isn't.
good.
No.
I was good with this.
Okay. This is just one voting sheet?
Yes, just a special
Yep,
permit.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Get rid of that.
5A Cottage. Anyone opposed?
No.
Now 13 Fifth Avenue, Mr. Bates and his two decks. He did have a health issue on that.
She does, and he
Yeah.
does also.
Yeah, so,
And, they did try to come more in compliance than
right,
they
and
were.
they did mitigate that prior.
Mitigated the problem before.
Yep.
Which I think was a problem of a good friend who really had a
Yeah,
bad ruler.
yeah, that was bad advice, basically.
Bad ruler.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion on this one?
Twice, cut once.
Do they have to go to conservation for
Yes,
that?
they do.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Go on, signature on this.
Uh,
Not it's you.
325 to 327, North Quincy, Richard Wall, variance on the decks.
One deck, hasn't it?
One deck,
One
yes,
deck.
one deck.
It's really a porch, it's a little,
That's 5 by 10,
Yeah.
it's a pimple, really,
yeah, in fact, he won't be able to put a chaise out there. He can put a chair
Even a
out,
chair,
but not a
yeah.
chaise.
But he can't, regardless of the size, he has a hardship wherever he puts it.
Yeah, I
The
know.
deck,
I
there's no
would say
room.
it's quiet enjoyment of his property.
Those neighbors, you really have to like them. I mean, they're that far apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could lean on the house from your house.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, someone didn't sign this one. There's a second one on this one, Mr. Gordon.
I didn't sign it?
You signed one, but not the second.
Ooh,
Maybe I didn't either. No? Oh, that wasn't me.
bad Mel.
The other one that picked up the other one.
I know.
Oh, jeez.
You were just seeing that if everybody
I
was
was
paying
just seeing if you were
attention.
paying attention.
Any issues on that little deck? The porch, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Casa Builders and Developers.
I didn't write down all the conditions. Somebody did, but.
Well, yeah. Kristen has.
I'd like to see, Kristen did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
let
changed
me
it,
just
we get them to change the address to Hartford Turnpike.
Well, I was talking more of the hours and.
And the hours are 7 to 9.
This-
No, 7 to 7.
7
7
to
to
7,
7? Okay.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday.
And 8 to 5 on
Saturday.
Saturday,
No
no Sundays.
Sundays and no outdoor repair.
No
work.
outdoor, no outdoor work. Okay.
And then,
Deed restriction?
no, this wouldn't be a
this
That
deed.
wasn't a deed restriction, that's just a special permit. But the
No, but
question is,
this is the one where they have to go back to DOT
Right.
for the curb cut, and they have to go back to DEP
I would like
The
to,
wetlands?
for the wetlands, yeah.
I guess the question is, because of neighbors' concerns, do we put a time limit on the special permit? I guess there really isn't
Well,
anything.
I don't think
I
so,
don't think we
because look
need
what
to,
you got
yeah.
next door.
Right.
Right now, it used to be a garage,
Yeah.
now it's a
Okay.
tile place. But the WD garage is up on top of the
Yeah.
hill, so
good use for the property.
Yeah, I think it is.
And I like the argument on both the sign and the sidewalk.
Yeah, the sidewalk was a no-brainer. That's a sidewalk to nowhere.
Yeah, right.
It'll be more dangerous than anything else.
Exactly.
Someone may use it.
Yeah. My only concern was impervious surface, but if you say it doesn't matter,
I
we
think
don't
it's
do it.
designed to a standard that would accommodate the type of traffic that's
good.
going to be
Okay.
coming, so
Yeah.
we don't want to.
Okay. And I'm learning.
Okay, so let's vote on the special, I'm sorry, the variance for the sign first. All those in favor?
I'm in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Next is special permit, garage and repair shops with hours as stipulated.
I'm in favor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next is a variance that we do not force them to have a sidewalk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
This got through earlier than I thought.
Yeah. Going quick.
You want this? The minutes?
Thank you.
It was the amount of paper you got that made
Made it,
it go longer.
I'm waiting for one back, I think. Oh, no. Yes. It's three signature pages on that one.
Okay.
And we have already taken care of new business, old business, and there was no correspondence.
Okey dokey.
Nobody will ever be able to copy that thing.
What's that? What's that? No.
Michelle, when's the next meeting?
Yeah, my wife.
September 26th? 27th?
When's the next meeting?
The last Tuesday of September 27th.
Got it?
Okay. At 6:30.
I have it in my book.
6:30. Is that working out for everyone so far?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No.
No?
We know you have to get your daughter.
I have to pick my daughter
Oh,
up
that's
at
right.
7 o'clock. So every time we have a meeting, I have to find somebody to pick her up.
Get her a car.
Here.
But you're young.
Do you want to make a motion to close the meeting?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the, get the
6:30.
last
Yeah.
file back.
Here you go. Fred?
Yep.
So September 27th at 6:30.
Yes.
And does someone want to make a motion to,
Move to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is closed.
Joined.
Now everything has changed. I'll show you